So this is Highland Park, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. And while I was driving through this, I literally think this is one of the worst cities I've ever seen in my life, if not the worst. And the population here is 8,700, and it's declining steadily. And it peaked at 53,000 back in the 1930s, and it's been declining since. And they're losing about 300 people a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when your population's all the way down to 8,700, losing 300 people is huge. The city's 85% black, and 10% white, and the black population of Highland Park is even higher than Detroit, which is 78%. The average age here is 46, which is really high, and 28% of the adults are seniors, which is also kind of on the high side for these, bad areas. So these are people that they've been there their whole lives and they're just not leaving. The average income is $31,000 a year, which is about normal for a bad city. The poverty rate is 41%, which is very high. And oddly, the race most likely to be in poverty is listed as Asian, with 100% of Asians living in poverty in Highland Park. But they account for less than 1% of the population, so it's not that many people. There's an 18% marriage rate, which is very, very low. I mean, the 22% marriage rate of Detroit would be considered low, so this 18 is considered, really low. Nobody's getting married there. And all these seniors they got living there, they're probably the only ones that are married. 75% of the people were born there and just stayed living there. The violent crime rate here is 434% higher than the national average. So it's slightly safer than Detroit, which is 455%. Since 2012, the homicides ranged from 2 to 6, and then jumped to 9 in 2021, giving a murder rate of 84.7 in 2021. And for a comparison, that's St. Louis levels. Assault rates ranged in 2012 to 2020 ranged from 1,000 to 1,500 per 100,000 people, but jumped up to 1,700 in 2021. And that's Detroit levels of assaults. And that's common that the assaults went up that much after the summer of Floyd, because 2020 made all these bad cities made them just that much worse, because nobody was getting put in jail for anything that they were doing in 2021, it seemed. And your odds of becoming a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 49, which is a little better than Detroit, which is 1 in 47. Your odds of becoming a victim of property crime is 1 in 30, and overall of any crime, 1 in 19. And both those numbers are basically the same as Detroit, which makes sense. These two are comparable. Detroit and Highland Park are comparable. As far as their stats go, they're kind of right on par with each other. And this, I drove through other suburbs of Detroit, but this literally was the worst one that I had driven through. I didn't get a creepy feeling from it at all. Like I said, I was there early in the morning, and it was probably, I bet it was 8 a.m. or earlier, and I'm feeling like it was a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday that I drove through there. And I didn't get a creepy feeling from it at all. I didn't get that feeling like I need to get out of here. But just the look of it, you look at some of these houses, you could see people were living in them. And they were so run down that in any other city they would be condemned. Just looking at it, it would be condemned. And people were living in them. And whether they were living in them like legally or they were just kind of squatting in them, I don't know. But you could clearly see people were living in them, and the houses were just horrible. The neighborhoods were horrible. The downtown area, the whole thing looked really bad. It honestly was probably the worst city I've ever driven through. And it just, when you drive through, it makes you wonder how the city lets people live like that. Like, I don't know how you uproot a whole city and tell the people they got to go someplace else, but there's only 8,700 people there. And maybe they're just waiting for everyone to go away so the city can become a ghost town at some point, down the line. If they're losing 300 people a year, it's not going to take them that long to be down to where there's not anybody left living there. So I'm going to let this just play through the rest of the video, and you can see more of the city, but it's kind of really, it made me feel sorry for these people that are living there. Obviously, I know that the way the city looks, they kind of did it to themselves. I get that, but it looked really bad, and I don't know if the footage is even going to show how bad it looked. But like I said, I didn't get a creepy feeling. I didn't feel unsafe there. It's just a horrible looking city. So enjoy the rest of the footage.